So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the EQ advice card set. In this set, we've got 7 different advice cards for each of the 9 competencies. And each of the advice cards gives you a different amount of advice in terms of how to develop this competency or how to improve it. We've also given you an instruction card. We've also given you another card that explains the EQ competency model and the details to each of the competencies in case you have forgotten the definition. Now, there are a number of ways that you can actually use this. You could use it in coaching, you can use it in training. Now, I find that especially for classes at the end of the day, of the second day program, maybe I give them about an hour where we can do a quick debrief or a quick understanding or recap or summary of the 9 competencies. Now, of course, as you know, during the program itself, we're not able to cover all 9 competencies, but it's always good for you to do a quick definition, or you could use the other activity card set to help them go through all the different 9 competencies to have a brief understanding of what it is, especially if they have taken the profiling tool. Now, if they've not taken the profiling tool, then of course it's up to you to just use the few different competencies that you've covered, and you can use the advice cards based on that. So one way, of course, is, as you can see in the instructions, is that they can choose from the 7 statements, they can choose the one that they like the most, right? And then they can illustrate it or draw a picture based on that advice, so that it will be a little bit more of a fun activity for them to share the different ways that they can improve this competency. The other way, of course, is to get them to share their experiences by talking about what the experience has been like in terms of developing this competency, or how it's actually given them some problems or some issues. And then the cards can be used as a goal-setting exercise, as well as getting them to talk about what are the different steps that they want to take forward in order to move them. Now, I do find that when I have a class of about 20 people, I normally get them to work in pairs if we're working on all 9 competencies. So these 2 people will look through the 7 cards, and basically all they need to do is to choose the top 2 advice, or maybe choose the top 3 advice, and then share it with the rest of the class. So there's a number of ways that you can actually do that. So again, let me just show you that we've got all the 9 different competencies there. And this would be on the back of each card. You will actually find that there's 7 different advice. I'm not going to show them in this video, but of course you would have experienced them either during the class, or you would have seen the cards in the samples. Yeah. So again, you can choose your top 3 advice, your top 2 advice, especially if it's in a class and you get a chance to share. Now, of course, if you're only covering about 4 or 5 competencies and you only have about 4 or 5 groups in the class, then you could also do the same thing. So for example, a table of about 4 or 5 participants, they can look at one competency, and normally the one competency that a lot of people are very low at is emotional management. So they can actually look at the 7 advice and then choose the top 2 or top 3, read them out to the class, and then share with the class how that has benefited them, or what are the actions that they're going to take in order to put into practice the different steps to increase their emotional management. Another area that we find very popular is optimism. So you might want to also get them to look at the optimism cards. And of course, the last one is empathy. Especially if you're only doing a 1-day program, then you might only be able to cover even maybe just 4 topics, and that could include consciousness or self-awareness. So depending on what kind of program you're running. Now, of course, if you're looking at a leadership program, then you want to actually go into areas like purpose, trust, and influence, right? Because these are the topics that are very important to them, as well as maybe even self-efficacy, because as you know, that's something that they want to mentor their staff with, or to be even better with it in terms of giving advice to their staff. Now, on top of that, you might be using it for coaching. So in terms of coaching, you might want to ask the coachee to choose what are their areas that they want to work on. If they can't decide, the other choice, of course, is to then look at the competency with the lowest score and then show them those 7 cards, or you could do something a little bit more random. You could ask them to just pick any of the 7 cards with all of them face down. So all they're seeing is maybe if the area that they need to work on is trust, they're just going to see 7 cards that look like this with the word trust behind it. Then get them to just pull any card, a little bit of a lucky draw kind of thing, right? So what you could do is ask them to then read it and say, does this advice speak to you? Does it say anything to you? And that could be an interesting conversation also. So ladies and gentlemen, those are just a few ways that you can use these advice cards. I'm sure you'll come up with many other ways of doing it. Once again, if you're really not sure, you could check in with Granville or myself. We definitely want to help you and support you in any way if you're not sure how to use the advice cards. Again, one deck is usually sufficient for a class of about 20 packs, or even a slightly bigger group of even up to 30. So again, enjoy using the cards and get in touch with us if you need any help.